Welcome. My name is Chris Vera. I am the director of the Columbia Historic Preservation Society. Here at the museum, we believe in total preservation of our artifacts, photos, and now we are digitizing our newspapers here in Columbia for research. We have a large genealogy base here in Columbia at the Columbia Historic Preservation Society for anybody to come in and research anytime, by appointment or by walk-in. This photo right here is William Wright. He is the grandson of John Wright, the founder of Wright's Ferry back in 1726. We believe he is one of the pioneers of the Underground Railroad in American history, where his home still sits today here in Columbia. We know for a fact that he freed many slaves inside his home. It is going to be documented over 1,000 slaves were freed inside his house. What we're looking at here is basically a depiction of what his house would have looked like, William Wright's house in 1795. And actually, the slaver is actually at his door looking for his slave. But in the meantime, right here in the carriage is actually a fugitive slave dressed as a woman. So he would basically disguise them so they wouldn't get caught by the either the bounty hunter or the master of that slave. So these are documents from the Columbia Bank and Bridge Company. William Wright, who was the first president of that bank up until 1817, starting in 1809. These are some of the documents, the stock that you could purchase. As you can see, his signatures are on these documents. Basically, they were selling stock, so basically a stock bridge up for tolls, things like that. The first bridge was built in 1811 and destroyed in 1832 by a flood. This bridge was built actually, instead of using the ferry, it's a lot quicker to bring those slaves over that bridge from York County so they can seek for freedom inside Columbia. William Wright's movement of slaves coming up the river along the borders of York County and Lancaster County, his movement of slaves was faster, and moving them in here royally was the major impact of that bridge. Wagons carrying them over, free slaves moving them over here on their wagons. They go pick up fruit over in York County and bring more slaves over. So it was a constant flow of freedom seekers into Columbia. York was not into the free slaves, basically freedom. They basically didn't want them over there. They had a lot of slaves still. We had slaves over here in Lancaster County, but they were majority slaves over in York County. So they were about moving them over into our town and basically dispersing them and then pushing them eventually up to Canada back in the 1840s and the 1850s. Here's a picture of Stephen Smith. He's well known for harboring fugitive slaves, but was born a slave up in Harrisburg, born around 1795, 1796. He comes to Columbia and basically builds an empire of lumber mill along the river, right at the foot of the bridge. He becomes the wealthiest African American in the country in the 1800s. His wealth in 1870 was around $800,000. It's around $15 million in today's money. He built this empire. And he became a reverend. He actually basically started the Zion AME churches here in Columbia. So he was very instrumental on harboring fugitive slaves and moving them to Philadelphia and eventually up to Canada to the Dawn settlement. Then we go down inside the case here. This book is one of our treasures. This is his first bank transaction with the Columbia Bank and Bridge Company, where eventually he owns more stock than anybody in the Columbia Bank and Bridge Company in the 1830s. But this is his first bank transaction where he deposits $300. That is $6,000 in today's money, and he's 23 years old doing that. That's amazing. So here's other pieces. We have a picture of the lumber mill, what it looked like around the 1870s after they sold it. And other important documents of Stephen Smith. He is, to us, one of the biggest pioneers of Underground Railroad in the country right now. He was very, very super smart on being an entrepreneur even in the teenage years. But he grew, his wealth grew, very generous, Eventually, his name went in Philadelphia, where he does many things in Philadelphia around 1840. Very instrumental to moving slaves up to Canada, along with his brother-in-law, William Whipper, who is the second wealthiest African American in the country at that time. Stephen Smith, I personally believe his father is Thomas Bode, who was a major in the Revolutionary Army. He's basically the one who grooms him into being a lumber mogul. So this desk here was actually in the Columbia Bank and Bridge Company. We dated it around 1836 to 1840, which Stephen possibly could have been sitting here. This desk is so important in the history of how many major abolitionists sat at this desk. Could have been William Wright, it could have been Thaddeus Stevens, it could have been William Whipper. It could have been a major abolitionist sat at this desk and wrote out their checks and wrote out all these documents. Super important desk that we have here at Columbia Historic. Here at the museum, our research is really important, not only for ourselves as volunteers, but for the public. So people from all around the United States, they can ask us if we have a picture of a certain furnace. So we have over 18,000 pictures. We have them digitized online now. They can contact us, or you can just come in and actually get a copy of it. We actually have the Columbia Spy, Columbia newspapers you can do research on. So some of these beautiful photos of the past, such as this is one of the furnaces that were long chickies back in the day. So amazing photography back in the 1800s. So you're more than welcome to stop by at any time or make an appointment. So we can definitely get you started and get you the right information to fulfill your needs. Here at the Columbia Historic Preservation, we have the Lower Susquehanna Model Railroad O-gauge display, which basically is one of the best displays of O-gauge, I think, around. It's good for family and to come and from young and old to check out our beautiful display down here on the first level. They're very inventive. They're very high tech here. The Columbia Susquehanna Model Railroaders, the HO display, this area depicts Columbia from 1905. Everything is scratch built. It shows the Reading Columbia Railroad station, the depot, some of the original houses, the Wright's Ferry Mansion. So this is a beautiful display of what the town would have looked like back in 1905. The Columbia and Susquehanna Model Railroaders, we're always building here, expanding. We're over 2,000 square feet right now, one of the largest in Pennsylvania. So we keep on building and building. We have many displays going up right now. As you can see, the tree line over the other side. It's a great piece. We can run about 9 to 10 trains at one time. So it's an amazing just to see the craftsmanship and the desire to make this display one of the best in the state. This piano was in storage from the Opera House in Columbia. The Opera House was built in 1872. It was the largest opera house in the state of Pennsylvania with 966 seats. Burns down in February of 1947. This piano was actually in storage at the time, built in around 1872. So also the statue on top was salvaged out of the fire. One of the only pieces actually that survived the fire. That's how huge the fire was. But really important to keep these type of pieces in history, especially this beautiful piano, which would be basically a orchestra piano at that time. Also in our collection are a lot of vintage books that can help you out with the history, genealogy, and other type of things, yearbooks from the high school, also other artifacts such as an old parking meter, old tin, yard tin from back in the day. And then here's more of the collection that has, say, the directories for businesses back in the 1800s up in the early 1900s, Bibles, family Bibles we have in our collection, history books. Some history books cannot be handled anymore, that are 200 years old, but we do have those most of the time digitized, or we can be very gentle on handling them for your information. Here at the Columbia Historic Preservation Society, we're always doing much more research on some of these old ledgers that I recovered back in 2010. We have over 1,200 bank ledgers, a lot of the Columbia Bank and Bridge Company, which was vital for Underground Railroads. We have all their documentations, so we can see where the money was going, what they were doing back in those days. So you can really follow the money trail is what I call, of some of these very important people, such as Stephen Smith and William Whipper. As you can see, this is dated back in 1832. This is when he's purchasing a lot of the stock from the Columbia Bank and Bridge Company. So you see a lot of his bank transactions, which we can just follow the money of where the money's going, and to see if there's any safe houses he's actually funding and other people around the state of Pennsylvania. We're very excited to have you visit us someday. We're open every Saturday and Sunday, 1 to 4 p.m. Look for our holiday hours when we are extended for the model railroad. But yeah, stop in. You can go to www.columbiahistory.org and check out all the nice history briefs we have inside that website. Thank you for coming today. I appreciate it.